Years later, every time I squeeze into a crowded subway car and look at the tired faces around me, I remember that unbelievable day. That was the day I thought I had won the game of life. I had built the kind of life I had always dreamed of. I became a CEO. I made millions of dollars. I became the exact person I had always wanted to be. I got everything I had ever dreamed of, and people looked at me with respect. Let me tell you exactly what happened that day. My name is Robert Carter. I am 29 years old. I work in a tall glass building in the middle of the city. From the outside, it looks modern and impressive. But inside, it is just a large office where hundreds of people sit close together looking at their screens in silence. It is a stressful place. The air often feels heavy, but nobody talks about it. My job title is assistant manager. It sounds important, but really, I do the same work as everyone else. I just have more emails and longer meetings. I live alone in a small apartment near the train station. It is a nice place with clean furniture. But truthfully, I am rarely there to actually live in it. To me, it is just a storage unit for my work clothes. Every morning, when I stand at the bathroom mirror and look at my face, I see someone who is already tired before the day has even started. My eyes always look a little lifeless, and there are thin lines on my forehead that were not there 2 years ago. I am not old, but I feel old. The truth is, I have spent the last 3 years chasing something I cannot clearly describe. A better title, a bigger salary, a luxury apartment with a view of the river. That perfect feeling of finally becoming successful. I want the kind of life I see on social media, confident smiles, effortless success, weekend trips to the coast. My old classmates post photos like that all the time. They pose in restaurants I cannot afford. They drive cars that cost more than my yearly salary. Every time I scroll through their photos, a small, bitter feeling grows inside my chest. I know I should not compare myself to them, but I do. I always do. For 3 years, I chased that life. I barely spent time with my family, and I ignored them when they needed me. I almost never made time for my friends. I was already exhausted, but I could not stop pushing myself forward. At the office, everyone talks about the same thing: getting promoted. The company has only a few positions at the top, and dozens of us are fighting for them. We exchange polite greetings in the hallway, but behind those greetings, we are all keeping score. Who stayed late last night? Who got praised in the meeting? Who had lunch with the director? It feels like a race that never ends, and nobody knows how to stop. My manager, Mr. Wallace, is a man with silver hair and a voice that never gets loud. He does not shout at people. He does something worse. He stays quiet. When he is disappointed in your work, he simply looks at you for a long moment, then says, "I see," and turns back to his computer. Those 2 small words feel heavier than any lecture. I have spent many sleepless nights replaying conversations with him in my head, wondering if I said the wrong thing, wondering if I missed a chance, wondering if someone else already took the opportunity I wanted. 6 months ago, Mr. Wallace called a meeting. He stood at the front of the room with his hands behind his back and told us that the company was going to open a new office in another city. Someone would need to lead the project, and the person who did the best would be promoted to run the new office. The salary would be 3 times what we make now. He looked around the room slowly, and for half a second, his eyes stopped on me. My heart jumped. "The decision," he said, "will be based on your final performance numbers at the end of the year. For the next 6 months, Nothing else existed. My whole world was just that promotion. I worked through the weekends and through my headaches. I ate quickly at my desk without even tasting my food. My life was just a series of glowing screens and endless numbers. I pushed my family out of my life completely. I disappeared from my friends' lives. Time passed, and I hardly noticed it, and I didn't even notice the weather outside my office window. Was it raining? Was the sun shining? I had no idea. If I had simply looked up from my computer, I would have noticed the changing seasons, but the world outside my screen had become completely invisible to me. It was early morning on the day of the deadline. I was still in the office. I had worked all through the night. Everyone else was probably waking up in their beds by now. The lights in the hallway were off. Only my desk lamp was still on, throwing a small circle of warm light across my keyboard. I had been working for over 20 hours straight. My eyes were dry and painful. My back ached. My body felt heavy, as if even breathing took extra effort. I leaned closer to the screen and tried to read the numbers on my final report one more time. But the words started to swim in front of my eyes, and the spreadsheet began to blur. I blinked hard. The bright screen seemed to move in front of me. I told myself to focus. Just one more hour. Just finish this last section. But my head felt heavy, and my eyelids kept falling. I put my arms on the desk and rested my forehead on them. Just for a moment, I told myself. Just a short rest. The meeting started at 9. Mr. Wallace was already standing at the front of the room when I walked in. He was holding a single piece of paper. The room was full. Every chair taken, everyone sitting very straight, the way people sit when they know something important is about to happen. Nobody was looking at their phone. Nobody was whispering. The only sound was the quiet hum of the air conditioning. Mr. Wallace placed the paper flat on the table. He looked around the room once, slowly. Then he looked at me. "Congratulations, Robert," he said. The room was quiet for one more second. Then everyone turned to look at me, and the quiet broke into applause. I remember thinking, so it actually happened, but I was not excited. I was just relieved. Like finally catching a bus you have waited too long for. I shook hands with Mr. Wallace. His handshake was quick and strong. "Don't waste it," he said quietly, close enough that only I could hear. Then he turned back to the room, and the moment was over. The years that followed moved quickly, but I remembered only a few moments clearly, like pictures from a dream. I remember the first morning I arrived at work, and the security guard greeted me with, "Good morning, sir," instead of just morning. It was a small thing, but I noticed it. I remember the day I got the apartment. It was on the 53rd floor. The agent gave me the keys on a small metal ring and smiled. That evening I drove there and stood by the window for a long time. Far below me, the city was full of lights. In the distance, I could see the river. I had imagined that moment many times while sitting at my old desk after work. And now, it was real. I went to bed early that night. The bedroom was very quiet. Through the thick windows, the city was just a faint, distant sound. I was not unhappy. But I was not sure I was happy either. I felt something else, something I could not clearly name. I turned onto my side, closed my eyes, and waited for sleep to come. I do not know exactly when things began to change. It was not a single event. It was more like the way a room slowly gets cold in winter. You do not notice it at first. Then suddenly you realize you have been sitting in the cold for a long time. The sleeping became difficult first. I would lie down exhausted and wake up 2 hours later, wide awake, my mind already running. I thought about spreadsheets with falling profits. I worried about an unreturned phone call from an important investor. And deep down, I felt the constant quiet fear of losing everything I had just gained. The work itself began to feel different. Not harder, but heavier. Every decision I made felt like a heavy stone. And even after the problem was solved, that heavy feeling never left me. At business dinners, the same people who had congratulated me in that first meeting were still warm and friendly. They filled my glass before I even asked. They spoke my name to other people at the table with easy smiles, as if my success also made them look better. But after a while, I began to notice small things. When I shared an opinion, I sometimes caught people exchanging quick looks. Some paused for a moment before answering me. Others quietly checked their phones while I was still speaking. Once I started seeing these things, I could not stop thinking about them. Then the real problem started. Marcus, a business partner I had trusted for years, called me. He spoke slowly and carefully. The market was shifting, he said. Some investors were nervous. He said they had to cancel our agreement. He apologized before he hung up. I put the phone down and sat very still. The contracts started to disappear one by one. First one, then 3 in the same month, then even more. The emails were always polite. Difficult circumstances, not the right moment. I read every one of them, but I did not reply. One morning, I arrived at the office and found that 7 people from the finance team had resigned. Their desks were completely empty. The screens were dark. The chairs were pushed in neatly, as if they had never been there. The room was strangely quiet, like a place people had left in a hurry. My assistant knocked and came in. She put a short resignation letter on my desk. She had already cleared her things. "I am sorry," she said. She looked truly sorry. Then she left without looking back. I sat behind my desk and looked at the empty doorway. On the last evening, I was alone in the apartment. I had not eaten since morning. Outside, the city was still alive. Cars moved far below when faint music rose from somewhere in the streets. I walked to the window and looked down. From this height, the people on the street looked like tiny dots. They all had somewhere to go. They were busy with their own lives, completely unaware of me watching them from above. My phone lay on the table. It had been silent for hours. I rested my forehead against the cold window and stood there in silence, feeling empty. I was not thinking about money. Strangely, I was thinking about a completely ordinary Sunday morning from 5 years ago. It was before all of this happened. I lived in a small apartment near the train station back then. That morning, I woke up late. I made a bad cup of coffee. I sat by the window and did absolutely nothing for 2 hours. The apartment was not fancy. The kitchen window had no view. I could sometimes hear the elevator, but I could also smell fresh bread from the bakery downstairs. Back then, I thought it was just a boring day. I never expected something so ordinary to become a memory. I pressed my hand against the glass. I opened my mouth and screamed. I suddenly opened my eyes, breathing hard. My forehead was wet. My hands were shaking. I could still hear the soft sound of the computer. The coffee cup was still in the same place. The cursor was still blinking at the end of the same unfinished sentence. I looked at my watch. Only 15 minutes had passed. I sat completely still and let that fact settle into me. The huge success, the fear of losing it all, the absolute loneliness, all of it. Just 15 minutes. I pushed back my chair and stood up slowly. I walked to the window at the far end of the office. Below, the early morning rush had begun. From the 32nd floor, the people moving out of the train station looked very small. They hurried along invisible paths, heads down, none of them looking up. Like ants, I thought. Exactly like ants. I watched them for a while. Then I took my phone from my pocket. It was 6:48 in the morning. I found my father's name and pressed call. He answered on the second ring. "Robert?" His voice sounded rough from sleep, but worried. "It is so early. Is everything okay?" "I am fine, Dad," I said. "I just wanted to hear your voice." He was quiet for a moment. "You sound exhausted, son," he said. "I have been tired for a long time," I told him. "But I think I am getting better." After the call, I went back to my desk. I looked at the report for a long moment. 6 months of work gathered in one report. For so long, it had felt like everything. Now it seemed that none of it mattered at all. Then I closed the laptop. I put on my jacket, picked up my bag, and walked to the elevator. As it carried me down, I felt something heavy in my chest begin to loosen. Outside, the morning air was cold and sharp. The sun had just risen above the buildings across the street, and the light fell directly into my eyes. I stopped on the pavement and stood there, letting it touch my face. I could feel the warmth on my skin. Not just see it, actually feel it. I turned left, away from the station, and walked until I reached a quiet park. The city noise disappeared as soon as I stepped between the trees. I found an empty bench near a small pond and sat down. The air was cool and clean. I could smell wet grass. Somewhere nearby, a bird was singing. I sat there for a long time and did not check my phone. I did not think about the report or Mr. Wallace or the promotion. I simply sat there quietly. It was something I had not done in a very long time. I had spent so long chasing bigger things that I had forgotten the value of something this simple. After a while, a pigeon landed near my feet and looked at me with its small, dark eyes. It pecked at the ground once, then it walked away. I watched it go, and for the first time in a long while, I laughed. The sun was fully up now. Somewhere above me, a bird made a soft sound. A single leaf drifted down and landed on the water without a sound. Sitting there, I thought of my friends and my family. I had pushed them all away because of my job. I had spent years building a dream, only to realize I was standing in it all alone. I leaned back and closed my eyes, letting the morning warmth wash over me. I had absolutely nowhere to be. Days passed one by one after that morning. I still take the subway every day. I still stand in the same crowded subway car and look at the same tired faces. Sometimes I see a familiar expression on someone's face. They are staring at their phone, somewhere between exhaustion and ambition. I wonder what kind of life they are building right now. I never say anything. The doors open. People move. I get off at my usual stop and walk up the stairs. The bakery on the corner is already open. I can smell the bread before I reach the top. I stop for a moment and let the smell find me. Then I keep walking. If this story touched you, please consider subscribing and sharing.